It's list time, and we're looking at my top 5 cameras for video in 2022. So quickly before we get started, some housekeeping. Yes, this is 120 FPS. We make videos about camera geekery, and if you're new here, then make sure you subscribe because that makes me feel warm inside. And enough of the wobble, enough of the waffle. Let's get on with the video. So my top 5 cameras for video in 2022. Really, this is my 5 favorite cameras for video that you can get that aren't necessarily the ones that grab the headlines. We all know that I love an underdog. We've got plenty of headline grabbing cameras coming out at the moment. Some at the back end of last year, some just released and some upcoming. But rather than those 8K behemoths, I want to move away from the hype and look at what really are the best value, or at least my favorite cameras for video that you can currently get on the market. And we're going to go basically category by category. We're going to look at different sensor formats and move our way down. And we're going to start this with the full frame. And this may surprise no one that watches many of our videos, and this is the Panasonic Lumix S1H. The S1H, yes, is a 2-year-old, I think, maybe even coming up to 2.5-year-old camera now, but it's still an absolute filmmaking powerhouse. A full-frame 35mm sensor with 5.7K anamorphic mode, 6K potential, Netflix approved, beautiful color, just an all-round epic camera for what is now seeming like an incredible value price. When it was released, it was $3,600 or pounds. It's dropping slightly as time's going on, as it's becoming a slightly older camera. You can even find them on the used market now, and that is really exciting. If $3,600 is too rich for your budget, then you can also get the Lumix S1 and pay for the Vlog firmware update, which gives you pretty much every video capability the S1H has, bar a minor couple. But this $100 upgrade takes the S1 up to pretty much S1H standards and means that you get that, all of that, for around $1,800 or pounds in total. Brand new. That is unreal. We've spent a lot of time with the S1H. We bought an S1 for the reasons I just said, and I have loved every single moment of shooting with it. It's very rare that we get to test a camera that I love so much that I then go on to buy straight away, and that is exactly what happened with the S1 and the S1H. It's the kind of camera that is so good that it encourages you to go out and shoot with, and they're quite rare, and when you do find them, you have to jump at them. I'm still surprised that this camera doesn't get the attention it deserves, because the Lumix S1H and the S1 are phenomenal full-frame cameras for filmmaking. And stepping down from that 35mm full frame into an APS-C sized crop, we're looking at the Fujifilm X-T4. Yet another camera that doesn't get the praise and the love it deserves, because for its price and its place in the market, it's untouchable for its video quality. There is very, very little out there in the APS-C format that is good as this for video. You get an absolutely rock-solid picture quality. You have all of Fujifilm's gorgeous picture profiles, including Eterna, which is my favourite of all time. You have probably the best IBIS system I've seen in a mirrorless camera, especially in the APS-C format. It's really light, it's really easy to use, it marries up to vintage lenses really nicely. It's just everything about this camera I really fell in love with. I was really gutted to send it back to Fujifilm. It's probably because I called them Fuji. I'm still not sorry about it. Everyone calls them Fuji. What's the problem? This camera offers a huge amount for the money. I think you can pick them up used now for around $1,000 to $1,300. Brand new, they're about $1,700, and that is an absolutely epic buy. Fujifilm X-T4 is definitely on this list of cameras that you should check out for video this year. And of course then, stepping down from APS-C sized into micro four thirds, and our options get quite limited, I'll be honest. Realistically, we're looking at one of 2 cameras, and they're both the same camera really. So it is the Panasonic GH5 II. And the only reason it's the 2 is that if you don't own a GH5, then it makes sense to get the GH5 II because it is slightly better. But if you're on a bargain binge and you really don't have the money for a GH5 II, then get the GH5 I because they are super cheap now. I think you can buy them used for between £500 and £800. But this was another camera that Panasonic sent to us to test that I was really sad to send back because it was so easy to use. It produced such a gorgeous image straight out of the camera that I can imagine using it all the time. It married up perfectly to some of the bigger Panasonic cameras that we have, the S1 and the AU Eva. It offers so much for video shooters at such a reduced cost, a small footprint. It's going to come down in price even more very soon when Panasonic release the GH6 later this year. It's actually supposed to be at the start of this year, but that's already happened, so it's going to be at some point, let's say before Easter, why not? The GH5 and the GH5 II will drop in price even more, and at that point, they're impossible to ignore because they are absolutely world beaters for video shooters this year. So what's smaller than Micro Four Thirds, I hear you ask? Well, what about video cameras, video dedicated cameras? And I'm not talking about cine cameras, I'm talking about more camcorder style video. That is the world that I came from. I came from shooting video productions, adverts and the like on video cameras. And these have very small sensors. We're talking a 1/2 inch sensor. That's the size of your iPhone, but what they can do with that is really impressive. So we're looking at the Panasonic HCX 2000. Now you may say, AJ, this is a Panasonic fest around here. And well, you'd be right. It's not by any mistake that they really are one of the kings of video. They're hard to beat in the total offering. They lead the market when it comes to video-centric cameras. Don't shoot me down. I'm not talking about hybrids. I'm not talking about cinema cameras. I'm talking about video cameras. They are market leaders there still. And the HCX 2000 is a gorgeous, handheld, portable run-and-gun camera. And these cameras are perfect for run-and-gun filmmakers. Why we don't see more content creators use them, well, it's because they're not fashionable. Let's face it, they don't get the hype. But it does surprise me because they offer all the features that any content creator would want. From video dedicated features such as XLR inputs or built-in ND filtering to incredible image stabilization, or this has an absolutely insane up to, I think I'm right in saying, a 400mm zoom. It may even be bigger than that, but the optical zoom is ridiculous on this thing. Now for sure, it does come with some shortcomings. The image isn't necessarily as aesthetically pleasing as something you'd get from a full frame camera, let's say. The low light performance isn't as good as something you'd get from a full frame camera. The autofocus, well, it's Panasonic, so it's not as good as something you'd get from Sony or Canon's dual pixel system. But what it does offer is absolute ease of use, and that's what you want these cameras for. I always use them for those slightly documentary style settings where you don't know what you're going to get into, so setting up a shot is very hard, but being able to react and catch the thing quickly on a good looking frame, that's what this camera's for, and that's what it was absolutely always great for, and that's what I've always loved Panasonic camcorders for, and that's why it's on this list. It's very affordable, it's incredibly easy to use, and it offers all the video features any filmmaker could ever want. So what's beyond that? We've covered all the main sensor sizes. Well, it's my honourable mention into this list, and it's one camera. It's one of the few cameras that I've kept forever because it is the greatest camera for video of all time. I'm going to say it. You can shoot me down. I don't care. I'm standing by this. It is the only digital camera that offers an analog characteristic. Anyone that's a long-time viewer of this channel will know what I'm talking about already. I've got it next to me. Yes, here it is. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, the original one, not the newfangled 4K thing, 6K or whatever it is. The original BMP-CC offers something that no other digital camera on the market right now can offer you, and that is character. It adds oodles of character into your image, and yes, it is absolutely riddled with shortcomings. It's disgustingly hard to use. It has no image stabilization at all. That's horrible. It's a battery life of a toenail. I didn't know toenails have battery lives, but they do. It's just full of shortcomings. But when you get over them and you get an image out of it and you drop it into your edit, you go, wow, that was totally worth it. It's just beautiful. It oozes quality that you can't get from anything else. And then if you're fortunate enough to be able to combine that with a vintage bit of glass, then you have an entirely new aesthetic that very few other people can reach for. In fact, It's almost so good it could be your filmmaking identity. Yes, it's 1080p, but you can drop it into a 4K timeline. It does upscale really nicely. The image will play with you. You get loads of color scope from it. It's got huge dynamic range. Just an all-round gorgeous camera. And to think that you can pick this up for, I've seen them for as low as 300, maybe 500. They're getting harder to find now. But to think you could pick this up for that price point, that's insane. I'm never letting this one go. I'm very tempted to buy a second one just to future-proof it, if I'm honest. They are that good. Anyway, that's me rambling at you for 5 minutes or so. It's probably been longer than that in the corner of a room. I'm going slightly insane on my own, I'll be honest, so please do join me in the comments so I don't go totally mad. But until that time, make sure you're subscribed, leave a like I say, join me in the comments so I don't go stir crazy, and I'll see you next time.